This is the Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry Jones and FBFL, brought to you by Sit and Car.
How's it, Harry?
How's it, MV?
Yeah.
Are you ready for the final last dance of the year?
I am. And I tell you what, I didn't expect to have the team this quickly. So, I just, gobbled together a quick little bit of a graphics here. I have something on the screen. So most people have it anyway. So let's start with that immediately. You want to start with the pack? You want to start at the front?
Yeah, let's go through it.
There we go.
So, looks like we have a couple of interesting things happening here. But, we've had a lot of play from Eben this whole season. He's been a workhorse. So he gets a little bit of a reprieve here by starting Jean Klein and Franco Mostert. So another workhorse is back. I think you would say for both Jean and Franco, you're never going to have to worry about battle stats, and you're never going to have to worry about physicality. They give what they give. And so that's the interesting thing. The front row is a bit of a constancy. You have Ox, you have Bongi, and you have Tank. I'm sorry, not Bongi. You have Grobbelaar. So Grobbelaar is flirting with being the third string, but hasn't nailed it down. So perhaps this is the surest sign of all that if we take the whole season, which is currently 10 wins and 2 losses, and you say, what do you want to end on? And Grobbelaar is your guy, throwing against Will Rowlands and other quality line-out operators. Yeah, I think that's interesting. It shows that 2 caps is not enough for Grobbelaar, that Rassie and Jerry Flannery and those guys want to see some more. I suppose it's interesting when you have such an amazing bench. So every time we say something, you have to look at the bench and say, who's your backup? Malcolm Marx is Grobbelaar's backup. So that feels pretty good for the Boks. Second row, Jean and Franco, you say, what if something goes wrong there? Let's look at our bench. Hey, hi, Eben. Hi, Archia. So it's really one of those ones where Wales would need to be quite a bit far ahead, a bit like in Scotland, where whatever lead you think you need a little bit more than that. So our tight 5 with Ox, who's unlucky not to be in the World Player of the Year list, Grobbelaar and Tank Toy, not going to be pushed around at scrum time, but Grobbelaar's got the big question mark at lineout. And then that's going to be answered in part by how Jean and Franco do at the lineouts and how they call those plays. One thing we should say about lineouts this season, we haven't loved it, but it's also been the number one area in which the Boks have experimented. The scrum is the scrum. The scrum is the harbor. It's got bricks. It's got keys. It's got locks. You sail your ship in there, and it's the way it is. Lineouts are probably the thing you can do the most trickery in, and this is an area where it's not just the forward coach, but Tony Brown wants to have a 4-man lineout. He wants to have a 4-man lineout because then you have a very difficult to defend midfield. You look at that forward pass that got pulled back last week. That was an exceptional first phase move off of a lineout. It wasn't forward, but I mean, the point was the scheme was beautiful, and that was from lineout trickery. So that's a big one. And then, so let's go to the loose forwards. What do you think about your man, Elrich Lowe, the Sheriff?
The Sheriff. Yeah. No, I'm happy because he's a bull. Firstly, I'm joking, but that guy just sort of, wrote his name in lights there. It was, if you remember, he wasn't even in the starting squad when the season began. He was called up later, was sort of on standby, same as Ruan Orkia. But before we talk about that, I wanted to just ask you, we all had our little predictions before the game, and there was going to be a lot of experiments done because this is the perfect game. There was jokes being made about sending a Currie Cup team over there will be good enough to beat Wales. This is the heavy artillery. This is a proper team in all respects. There's not one single weak link in here. And I was just wondering why. I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to give Willie his 99th run on, for example, or even if he started from the bench to say he starts at 100th game. A lot of little things that I thought is going to be a different approach. Rassie didn't decide to go that way. He went for the full Monty. This is a completely different team to what we expected. Let's just tell me that. What do you think about that?
Because of nightmare possibilities. The nightmare is you have 10 wins, 2 losses. 3 of your players are in the World Player of the Year. You're probably going to be the Team of the Year. Rassie's in line for Coach of the Year. It's one of the best years post World Cup win, in the sense that you have to rebuild but still win. A drop goal misses in Durban, and Marty nails a kick in Argentina, and it's a perfect season. So it would be all undone. All of it would turn to shit if you lose at Wales. True. And so, but I still think there's experimentation going on here. But you don't want to start with a pack that has any flaws. So, Kwacha's not in there as a starter. You have proper carriers. Jasper Wiese, Elrich Lowe can get you across the gain line. Siya Kolisi is one of the best tight carriers in World Rugby, but he can also play in the trams. Franco Mostert, John Klein are workhorses. And then you have Tank Tuto, he's not going to take a backward step, and also a good carrier, hard carrier. Grobbelaar is a good carrier, and then Ox has been one of the best props in the world this year. So that's a proper pack. You have relief in the form of Archie and Eben at any time you want. And then you have Marks and Koch coming in, steamrolling people. So you're solving one problem, which is even though the Wallabies beat Wales, there were passages of time in the first half especially, when Wales got to parity and above in lineouts and in set piece. They tortured Angus Bell. So there's that. Avoid the nightmare, make sure you get the win. And in the back of your mind also, if you're Tony and those guys, you have had 51 different players play in the green and gold this season. So you've already done more experimentation than France, more than Ireland, more than New Zealand. They're in the 30s to low 40s. The Wallabies have done actually a lot, but that's because they're in a total rebuilding phase. So I think that's the double answer there. But the pack should make everyone feel at ease, because it's the pack where you're going to be in trouble or not. If you're going to be experimenting, you're going to throw someone in, let's go to the backs now, because that's where it happens. We had wondered about, before I leave that, I will say quietly, your man Elrich Lowe, the sheriff, has accumulated more caps now than people like Salman Murat, who've been around for longer. He has more caps now than Kanan Moody. He has more caps now than, let's see who else. He's right there with Mani Libok. I mean, my point is, like, you think of Elrich Lowe as a kid, but it's like you look up suddenly and you go, let's see, by the end of the Rugby Championship next year, Elrich Lowe could be a 30 cap guy or somewhere in there, the high 20s. So that's a statement for the future. Moving to the backs, that's where we have our answer to the Barrett brothers, the Hendrickse brothers. We just got to find one more.
Hiding in the closet.
It's interesting because I don't know, growing up, I played with a couple of brothers. They hated each other, but you couldn't fight with one of them. The other one would jump in, but they sibling rivalry is a big thing. So it's interesting that you have a 9-10 Hendrickse brother combination. There's two ways that goes. One is they're almost telepathic. They can read each other's moves. They think for each other, and it's beautiful. The other one is when someone stuffs something up, unlike any other 9-10 combination, like you can actually walk over to each other and say, harsh things because you grew up together. So everyone's going to be watching that. The rest of the back line, let's see, we have Damien, Jesse, Colby, Arendse. We have the top picks. And then we have, I think Willy's probably carrying some kind of minor niggle or something. There's the only way I can explain it. Because Rassie said for sure he wants to get in one more cap and then do the final one in South Africa. So something probably happened. And that happens when you're Willy's age and you have some issues, in your legs and so forth. But yeah, so the spotlight now is on Jordan Hendrickse. Jordan Hendrickse, because he has one cap and it was a bad cap. I mean, let's be honest, it wasn't good. It wasn't good, and it didn't look like he was going to have another shot. So I kind of like it. I kind of like the idea that you have Andre Pollard in the wings, a selfless type of player Andre is. He doesn't do the Jalabert where the French player wasn't picked to start, so he just left camp. Andre has been a good soldier. But yeah, so Jordan should take this as one of the great moments in his sporting life, which is it wasn't guaranteed. Some of the coaches would not have given him this. Probably it's not just Rassie. Probably Tony Brown sees something in Jordan. and likes the way he gets off the line, likes the way he does a pullback pass, likes the way that he's able to extend length and get the ball not just to Damien but to Jesse, because the number of times you can get the ball in a first phase move to Jesse is probably the number of times that you're going to have line breaks. No one seems to be able to contain him, and with Damien always a threat to break tackles like he did last week, you always have to put two men on Damien, and sometimes two men's not enough. So, yeah, I'm excited about the idea of Jordan being able to operate with that much quality on the outside, with his blood brother, real brother on the inside, and probably a decent amount of ball. So that's the starting lineup. Want to go to the bench now?
Yeah, I was going to talk about Jordan quickly. You had that test that you referred to that wasn't so great at Wales, against Wales, at same stadium. That was the first game of the season. The last game of the season against Wales. To me, it's kind of full circle. I think he's done enough in the meantime to prove that he's got that BMT, that he was a bit nervous maybe. Remember the Currie Cup final, how well he did that kick he put over right at the end. So I think he deserves this chance. And I'm excited about him. And of course, if he has a bit of a jitters again when it comes to kicking, his brother can step in for him.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that would be one for the trivia quiz. When were two brothers the primary kickers? Again, the Bowden Barrett, Geordie Barrett probably is the other answer.
Yeah,
when in doubt, guess the Barretts.
Just so can I just say something before you go? Pierre Queripel asked, why no Esterhuizen and Am? I think you've explained it quite well. There's a full proper team. But just briefly, why do you think they went for Damien and Jesse specifically?
I don't. So I have a minority position about Andre. I think Andre has always been one of the best club players in the Premiership, and when he plays for the Sharks, not only is he a great clearance exit kick, he's good on defense, and he snaffles the ball. The combination of the Sharks between him and Am was always really fun to watch, I thought. I think we have to be honest. If we have a guy like Andre who has, let's see, 18, 19-ish caps. But if we're honest, a lot of those performances were not stellar, and it has to do with ball security and presentment, and being too much in love with being able to physically dominate his direct opponent. It doesn't fit into the flow of this attack scheme, which is trying to present new angles and shifting angles. Damien does get into crash ball. He does get over his opponent, and he does set rucks like that. But the thing about Damien is, try to remember the last time he got turned over. Try to remember the last time he got turned over in contact. Tell me when he spilled the ball. Tell me when he didn't look for being able to physically dominate his opponent. And show me the times when Damien didn't exploit a line break well, whether it was in World Cup final, World Cup semi-final, or like last week at Twickenham, where not many people would be able to break that tackle and deliver to Colby clearly backwards so that the ref doesn't pull it up. So I think there's that angle. Second angle is, so I'm saying about that, Andre is a backup. There is no controversy between Damien and Andre being the top 12. There's just none. That's been settled a long time ago. But I also think that the shape of this game, with Jordan coming in for redemption against the very same opponent, like you said, it helps the fly-off stay in the right shape if he doesn't have an Andre type to his right. Damien's going to give you exactly what you think you need, extremely predictable, the way he sets rucks targets for his loosies, and therefore doesn't require Jordan to come to a ruck. The way Andre plays rugby, sometimes he makes his fly-off have to play like a loosie because they have to clean rucks. So it allows Jordan to stay back where he wants to be in the pocket and then find the shape again. One of the great things in rugby, the hardest things in rugby, is to find your shape in the second, third, fourth, fifth phases, to get back into attacking shape, not just be pell-mell. And so when you have too many people that are always finding that extra meter here and there, but it's like a meter you don't need. Like, stop, don't get that meter. Just get down into the shape where Steenekamp can find you to clean, where Tank the Toy doesn't have to do a swivel move to get to you. So I think that's part of it. What am I saying? Coherence, continuity. That's important when you bring in someone like Jordan Hendrickse on his second cap And you can say what you want, it's Wales. But the thing is, if you get behind, let's say you miss a few kicks, if you're Jordan, you miss the first 2 kicks, you turn the ball over, they have an intercept try, they run in. You do want to be able to have a shape that you can return to. Against England, England scored a try right off the bat. Did anyone worry? Nobody worried, because you knew that it would be okay. But if you have a one cap fly off, it's not like the angst we had with Mani. We were worried with Mani, but we weren't completely petrified. I think if you have Jordan Hendrickson and it goes south on you in a second, you're going to be worried. So I think that's the reason there. Sorry, long answer. But I think there's people talking about Andre all the time. Andre's 30 years old. He's got almost 20 caps. It's never really come through at the test level the way people wish it would.
Yeah, we weren't worried about Mani's defense or anything. We were just worried about him kicking to posts. I mean, otherwise
Yeah.
he was good enough. Yeah. Let's talk about the bench, and of course the one that everybody's been talking about is number 21, Cameron Hanekom. And as expected, Rassie is giving him his chance against Wales. Just sort of rub it in Warren Gatland's face, don't you think?
Yeah, there's something. I love that Rassie's not above shithousery. I think it's one of the ways that I love him so much is that, okay, he's a grown up and he's sort of matured and he's polished his image and he gives the best press conferences because he's honest. He's the only one who's honest. And he tells you stuff that's interesting. And even his infamous video, if you just watched it, you learned a lot about, the rock and breakdown. What I like about him also is sometimes he just wants to do something like cheeky. So I think it's funny that he held Cam back until this game. I'm excited about Cameron Hanekom. I've been excited about him since I first saw him. I always believed the hype. I thought the hype was spot on, just like with Sasha. I think I'm pretty good at spotting out things that are unjustified hype, and I think I'm pretty good at seeing proper hype. This guy's proper hyped. He's proper hyped because he's a pure athlete. He's the kind of guy that we need in rugby because he's that perfect blend of speed, belligerence, IQ, silky skills. You don't need to throw a perfect pass to Hanekom. He'll take it. He's got a good scoop. And I also think he's got an eye for the gap, and he backs himself. He has that sense, like Sasha does, of athletic superiority. So I think that's cool. People are trying to find an analog to compare him to, and I keep hearing Peter Spies, but I don't know. I think Hanekom's a bit of a harder man. He's not as big as Spies, but I feel like he's a bit of a harder guy. So it'll be like Wainwright is a proper number 8. So and Tommy Raffel's a proper operator. Jack Morgan, like the loose forwards of Wales are not bad. So I think it's a good test for him. Now Cameron would know these guys because he plays in the Urk. But I hope that he gets under the roof. I hope he gets some clear track to operate with a guy like Kobus Ranach, or maybe Archie does one of his famous giraffe breaks and runs around and offloads to his buddy Hanekom. It'd be a great Pretoria connection if that happens. I'm looking forward to it.
To me, it's a combination of Dwayne Vermeulen physicality-wise and Pierre Spies in terms of the way that he runs, that sort of grace that he runs with. He runs like a cheetah almost. Anyway, what I'm curious about is where is he going to come on? Which position do you think? Because I don't think if you slot into 8 and Visa comes off, that means Sia will play the rest of the game. I think he's going to go to 6. I think he's going to replace Sia. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Sia would definitely be of the 3 of Low, Visa, and Sia. It would be Sia that traditionally has come off. Visa is almost always an 80-minute man and has been for club and country. I think there's a bit of an imbalance if you have Sia and Visa and Hanekom. So I think maybe, Low probably has been asked to go the whole way. Or you can always have someone shift over. I mean, there's even a situation here. Mark it down. Remind me if this happens that Eben plays on the flank. That could happen.
Or Franco, so can move to flank.
Yeah, there's ability. Eben played at club level in Toulon and Toulouse for at flank, and Franco in some ways is more like a flank. He's like a big blind side. Mm-hmm. So I think it's probably situational. The coaches tell us, and I guess we have to believe them, that they track GPSs, and whoever of Sia, Jasper, and Elrich slip off on speed of arrival, effort, that may be the deciding factor. And maybe this is the kind of game that you can play those games with, where you don't have to be so technical about who's playing which position in the loose forwards. Elrich can play all three positions. Sia can play all three positions, played plenty at 8. Visa could probably play blindside in a pinch. But I've always thought that Hanekom and Ruiz need to think about developing their 6 skills, because in the long term, Sia is the oldest one of that old guard. And it's also a position that we don't really have. We don't really have one standout. You know, we have Marco van Staden, who can play that kind of fire plug. Quagga Smith can play that kind of way. Fepsi doesn't think. I don't think he does. Ben Jason Dixon's too long for that. There's no way he can get down in the trenches. Hanekom's got really good hamstrings. He can fold up into a pretzel, and he gets a lot of pilfers, and maybe more importantly, he slows the ball a lot for the Bulls. He just gets in there. And one thing we've learned about this autumn series is the ruck is a mess. It is a complete mess. The refs are allowing late counter rucks. They are allowing a longer breakdown. It's like 3 seconds instead of 2 seconds. A lot of 9s are having trouble. Hanekom is a proper pest at the breakdown. So it's not just streak away, breakaway tries where he gets to show his speed. I'm kind of looking forward to him showing that he's able to make the opposition 9 sad and aggravated, enervated, irritated. I want the opposing 9 to be waving his arms around and telling the ref that Hanekom is doing something wrong. Then we know he's doing something right. So the rest of the bench is same old, same old. It's tried and tested. Marks, Steenekamp, Koch, Etzebeth, Sneeman, Reinach, and Pollard. It couldn't get any more reliable than that. So Hanekom is the it boy. You know, he's the guy. He's the guy that spotlight will shine on. And I think all South Africans, when he runs on, we're going to looking for something. Now, there's a trap there, and the trap is this: when you're a loose forward, sometimes you just got to keep your head down and do the basics. You know, Ben Jason learned that. He got ahead of himself in the game after the Magic game. So maybe Cameron just come in and just say, I'm going to attend every ruck I can get to, put my head in there, go into dark places, and then if it comes my way, if the ball falls the right way, then go.
I'm going to ask you a question that might sound a bit stupid, so forgive me if it does. Cameron played 6 for the Bulls one game in the URC last season, and it wasn't that impressive. But if you look at open side and blind side, or you look at left flank and right flank, there's a bit of a difference. Which one are we playing? The traditional open side, blind side, or are we playing left and right?
Yeah, so this has to do with the particular strangeness of our loose forward combinations because of who they are. So Sia Kolisi is not your normal open sider, and Peter Steff is not your normal blind side. It's almost like we have a lock playing blind side and we have a blind side playing open side, and then we rely on our hookers and, quite frankly, our midfield to do a lot of the snaffling that other teams do. In that sense, we're more like the French and Argentina. Argentina plays a left and right, and the French play really big loosies who are their line-out options. So they never throw to the locks. So there's different ways to skin a cat. I've always thought that when we reach the end of the Sia Kolisi era, that it will be different. Because I still think there is a role for Fraser McWright, like for the Wallabies, for a Tom Curry, sorry for mentioning his name, in England, or Sam Underhill. There is a place in rugby for a stopper, for a fetcher, for the guy that can upend the game. Not in every match, but there's just some matches where you need someone on the floor. You need a deck player. So yeah, I think that would be good to have. I don't know who that is. There's not an immediate name that comes to mind, which is why if I was the agent for Cameron Hanekom, that's where I'd sit down and talk to him and say, you've got a wide open boulevard here. I mean, if you become the open sider, like, you know, from old school days, like a Rob Lowe, where you've got the speed to tear away, but you can also do all the functions you need around the ruck. that's not bad. Charles Olivon for France, fantastic player, and gives them such an edge because he's comfortable in space, but he's also a hard nut. For Ireland, Josh van der Fleer to me is a nice comparison. I think he's about the same size as Hanekom. I think they have the same speed profile. Josh is stronger than people think. He's hard to move off the ball. And he's also athletic fella, a world player of the year. So, I mean, people shouldn't sneeze at that and say, well, why are you comparing it to Josh van if Cameron Hanekom became Josh van der Fleer, that would be great. So I think that's where I might go with him. I don't know at this stage, looking at him, if he's able to become that big 8 that sometimes you want, just big through the hips, no washboard stomach, no six-pack, one pack, Jasper Wiese, where he's got padding and proper, he's got the fenders of the bucky. I don't know, because you look at a guy who's young like Hanekom, and you don't know how he's gonna age through life in terms of adding mass. Like Francois Flo was an interesting example. He was a very skinny guy in school, very quick, but he became very hefty at the end. Dwayne Vermeulen, I think, is a similar kind of, was really quick when he was coming up, but he got better when he got bigger, and he became a powerhouse. So the future is bright for Hanekom. I don't know where he's going to go. I hope he doesn't try to do too much in this game, because really he doesn't need to do too much at all. He just needs to make sure that he hits his the right points, fundamentals, get an 8 out of 10, maybe a 9, but don't try for the 10.
All right. Just remember, people, Certain Cars makes these videos possible, and we have a competition running with them. If you guess the score, you can, or get close to the score, you can win R1,000. If you're lucky, you might throw something extra in. Leave your score prediction in the comment down below, please, and use the hashtag #ShiftTheScore. So we've got a new winner from last weekend, so we'll announce that winner on Thursday's Lekker Rugby Pod. We've already been in contact with her. It's a woman. Can you believe it? So there we go.
It's always a woman.
It's, again. Yeah. And she's even closer than what Amanda was, I'm telling you now. Harry, just one more thing. We saw Wales being sort of taken apart by an Australian side that we all sort of, had our doubts about. What do we expect from Wales? You'd mentioned Angus Bell from Australia had an excellent game against England, but Wales actually took him apart in the scrums and he was taken off. What can we expect from a Wales with their backs against the wall, with Warren Gatland probably his last game in charge, if you ask me? What are we looking at there?
Yeah, Wales plays better against us than they play against a side like the Wallabies. The Wallabies are sort of a kryptonite side for Wales, just like we play better against the All Blacks than Ireland does. There's just the matchup issues. We kick the right amount of times to trouble them. There's things that we do against all other teams that the Welsh kind of go, okay, thanks. Thank you for playing like that. This might be different this season, obviously. And the first time we played them this season was 41-13, 5 tries to 1. You would think that internally the Boks are saying it shouldn't be any worse than that. We should do just as well as that. I've been preaching the idea of internal goals instead of worrying about running a score up. Because sometimes you try to run a score up against a weak team and you look at 30 minutes and it's 6-3 and you're like, why? Because rugby is so difficult to score when you have final pass jitters, when you have a ragged clean, or when you miss a tackle or something. Even though you're the dominant team, it doesn't necessarily show up on the scoreboard. So I would look at penalties. The first time we played against Wales, we had a 4 penalty edge on them, but we had a card. I look across the games of this season, there was only 3 matches in which we didn't get a card. So I'd come into this saying, we're going to win. I'm sure we're going to win. But can we emerge from this with no cards? Let's get to the level like we were against New Zealand at Ellis Park, where we had a 9 penalty edge. Let's try to have the right ruck count. Our games where we struggled this year, we had too many rucks, because the more rucks you have, over 100 rucks, that means I'm getting big guys to rucks, got a resource to ruck. Line breaks. We've had half of my games, we had none or 1 line break. the games where we had lots of line breaks, like England last week, 6 line breaks, or 4 against Australia and Brisbane, or 7 against Wales earlier this year, those are attractive looking games. Let's develop line breaks. What about kicking? Sort of counterintuitively, the games where we kick the right amount more, we do well. We develop quick ball because we regain 4 or 5 of those. And in the new rules, the new emphasis, there is nothing better than regaining kicks. That is, the defenses are not set up to contain that. Almost every team sets up kick return as if they're going to get the ball, so they don't have contingencies behind them, and that's one of our strengths. So our kicking shape looks like we're always best when we're between 25 and 28, 29 kicks, assuming about the same amount of ball, like 50-50. But the games where we do that really well, where our territory is more like 60%, we split the ball 50-50, and we kick about 28, 27, 28 times. We regain 4, 5, 6. Those are our breaks. 2 of those are tries. Put it to bed. Also, the other thing is, I think they would put an internal gauge here and say, let's not allow Wales to score a try. Right now, we are 8 tries to 2 on the tour. Let's just install an artificial goal for ourselves that we score another 4 or 5, and they score no tries, so that our tour stats are 13, 14 tries to 2. That's a successful tour. No cards, no injuries. Let's all go home and have a good off season.
Right, you mentioned that the standout thing about this Autumn Nations series was that access thing. South Africa adapted the best to it. The Rucks, some other teams adapted. Just briefly, quickly, talk to me about these changes that we've seen and which teams you think adapted the best to them.
Actually, I tried to be clever and put this into since we're always talking about the spring tour, the autumn tour, I tried to make this into the season. So for me, when you imagine winter, things are dying, things are falling off. Right now, the teams that are in winter are England, which seems to have been affected more by the no escort and no guard than any other team. Jack van Poortvliet was just read by Eben Etzebeth, and that was by design. They had scouted him. Archie was always on his left, and Eben was always on his right. And they had that down to a T, so that you're not allowed to put a guard down in front of your 9 doing the box kicks. On the chases, even guys like Courtney Arnson giving up 5-6 inches to the English kick catchers, because there was no escorts, guards, shepherds, whatever, bodyguards. A guy like Courtney Arnson's got good air, and so he could time his approach. You got a guy like Rassie, and you really get good air. So, England's had a hard time adjusting that. Should they have? No, because they have all the money in the world. They have all the analytics. Borthwick says that they announced this change late, and that's probably fair enough. But for some reason, other teams were able to react. So Wales, which has a coach which may not even survive the week. Italy, which seems to have taken a backward step, got pummeled by Argentina and just barely held on against the 7th nation team, Georgia, that keeps trying to push into the 6 nations. So that wasn't good for them. So my winter teams are England, Italy, and Wales. Shivering, cold, no wood for the fire. Autumn nation, to me, is Fiji, where kind of was hoping for more, might still be more. Let's see Fiji as they go into these other games, because they could still pull a surprise against Ireland. My summer teams are teams that are kind of just, on a jolt there by the beach, not sure which way they went, up or down. Ireland, post-July, you thought they were on the up, but they've had a really hard time with too many rucks. They try to develop 120, 130, 140 rucks. That is just too much. Their guys are dying on defense because of the load they have on attack rucks. There's an argument to be made that Durban, even though they broke all of our legs and arms, that Durban actually hurt them more. That they've been unable to reload since Durban, whereas the box with infinite amounts of depth and hard men could do it. So they might have, to win that one battle, they might have put themselves into a tricky part of the war, because Ireland doesn't have depth. Cian Healy, give me a break. 37-year-old props your bench guy. Your bomb squad is Peter O'Mahony, Ian Anderson, lost legs, Conor Murray. So I would say Scotland, Argentina, Ireland and New Zealand are my summer teams in the sense that there's been some good, there's been some bad. New Zealand looks like they could score the final quarter, maybe, but then the next week, maybe not. Ireland looks like they are a bit slow to the ruck and they make too many rucks. Scotland and Argentina, almost on parity. Whatever happens next with Scotland will tell a tale. So my spring teams, hope springs eternal, life, fertility, the goddess of fertility, all that old stuff. South Africa, Australia, who knew, and the French. For a while, the French looked like they were the ones diving because they were so disappointed and they have internal strife. But they can thrive under 75 ruck, super chase, speed off the edges. Louis Bielbiari left Severis in the dust, and Anton Leonard-Brown. They have proper South African level speed. They have athletes, and they can recruit those at flank and at wing ad infinitum. And they seem to be okay with playing without the ball. All the rules changes and edits and emphases and ELVs. They're trying to do this one thing over here. It does the opposite. Kicking is more important now. So the French have really good kickers. Australia has thrived for a different reason. Australia has thrived because they have actually just top-end athletes. They have like Rob Valentini, who is just, if you're just around him at all, if you've ever been like stand next to him, which I have, he has that kind of Cameron Hanekom build. He's just, but bigger. And they've got guys that can motor. They've got Taniela Tupos, they've got Angus Bell, big guys that can move. They've got props that were sprint champions. So I think the Southern Hemisphere can just produce those raw athletes. And when you finally get a guy like Joe Schmidt to put it all together, and they believe in him, and they're playing with swagger, Landy Katau doing flicks, Max Jorgensen with proper speed, Tom Wright in the form of his life, they scare Northern Hemisphere teams. In fact, what they do to Northern Hemisphere teams is everyone gets their checkbooks out, they try to sign them and find ways to lure them away. You have so many Australians playing top-level rugby and test rugby for other countries. Jack Dempsey, Emmanuel Miafu, they're like top players, Sione, Tupolotu. So those three teams appear to be on the rise. I would never have guessed that the Boks could do this well, keep bringing in new players, and not drop a few more tests. So I'm really happy about the series.
Yeah. You mentioned there, we had 50 plus 51 players playing for the Springboks this season. We've got 11-2, if we don't lose against Wales. And then new attack coach, new defense coach, a lot of new things brought in, incredible depth developed. And actually, we, like you said, by the fact that we didn't lose more games, we are probably the best set of all these teams.
I think there's not really dispute. If you actually, as I do, I pick out some really good podcasts that are, the Telegraph has a really good podcast. My friend Charlie Morgan there, my friend Bernard Jackman Birch over at Irish Weekly, together with Murray Kinsella, really good writer. These are honest people, and none of them are saying anything other than this is remarkable. South Africa is definitely the number one team. I listened to Rugby Aotearoa, which has some pretty good Kiwi commentators. They've said the same thing. It's like, we don't need to have a persecution complex. Everyone is saying that the top team in the world is the Springboks. The difficulty of winning a World Cup and avoiding a letdown, melancholy, depression, infighting. Sometimes when you do well, people start to have, egos, and nobody wants to be the second fiddle. What everyone's noticing, and guys that went to the Isle of Jersey and watched the Springboks play, is the remarkable harmony between guys like Andre and Mani. The absence of any elbow throwing between the different nines, because who is our starting nine? No one knows. The fact that people are selfless. So if you're not picked, if you're an Andre, who probably, would start for a lot of other teams, by the way. So when I say things about Andre, just take it with a grain of salt. He would start for England. He's a willing practice player. I mean, he's a training guy, and he loves giving Damien just the right clue to play England because he knows those guys so well. So yeah, we can't say enough good about it, and we have to defer sometimes. We all have our opinions, but by now we should have learned to trust in Rassie, for all of his mad genius and sometimes eccentricities, we are seeing that he is able to find the players who fit. And then when he says to Jordan Hendrickse, no matter what we think, I want to see it one more time. I trust him. I kind of think if it doesn't go right, we have plan B waiting. So it's okay. But I do want to see it. I want to see Jordan nail a kick. He's a fantastic boot. And we can get away. We can have all kinds of plans and different kind of Bok ball and Tony ball. In the end, we got to have South African rugby has got to force penalties and take those penalties, turn them into threes. So hopefully he can nail a few kicks and get his confidence. I do know that fly-offs feed off of their kicking, out of hand or off the tee. And if you start out well kicking, the rest of your game sort of seems to follow.
Just talk to me quickly about the Player of the Year nominations. I see it was Karen Doris, Eben Etzebeth, Peter Steph and Cheslin Colby. And I said our friend Ben Smith has already said, yeah, Eben doesn't deserve to even be nominated because he's been upended and overturned and whatever else. Just your thoughts on that, those nominations quickly.
Yeah, so these kind of awards they're kind of fraught with peril because I think they're almost always 2 or 3 years out of date. Like I noticed, for example, there were a couple of seasons where Eben should have got it already, that he wasn't even nominated, or he was nominated for seasons that weren't as good as the ones where he should have been nominated. So it's almost like Eben is the Meryl Streep in the Oscars, being nominated, 12 times before she won. I do think in a way these awards turn into lifetime career awards as well. So if you kind of slip and you didn't have him when you should have, it accumulates, and maybe that's fair, maybe that's justice. I actually think the opposite of little Ben Smith from New Zealand, who I doubt, having seen him, has ever played rugby a day in his life. I thought Eben had he had a magnificent year. And so you can pick out moments in which he got tackled or reversed. That happens to everyone. There's no one in rugby that can withstand 3 guys pushing you back, or you're caught in the awkward position, or you're cleaned out. I mean, it happens to everyone. The level of excellence in each game, and the fact that he sometimes put the team on his back, and was pretty much the second captain of the Springboks team. His chase skills, his block back charge down skills, his dominant tackles, his game reading, and his ball in hand, and his ability to find gaps, all of it to me was absolutely remarkable. Peter Steph also has a claim as the ultimate workhorse. If Peter Steph won it, it wouldn't matter at all to me. I would think Eben and Peter Steph probably are the 2 most worthy candidates. I think it needs to be a tight or front 5 or 5 forwards, from 1 to blindside. I think it's that kind of year. I think that's what won the day. Love Cheslin. Cheslin's moments of magic. I kind of think that his best is still ahead of him, and he'll have his day. But I don't think from game 1 to game 12, I don't see Colby's influence as high as Peter Steph's for sure, and I don't see the game-changing influence of the entire game as high as Eben, because Eben now is unusual lock, because he does everything. He takes the line out, he cleans, he attacks, he charge downs, he chases, he sets pods, and he's involved in the wide trams. A word for Kalen Doris, what a brilliant player. He's the kind of guy, oftentimes, for the Boks, when you imagine that game, the old scenario of like, who would I pick from another team? That kind of thing. I would think about him. He's a proper player, and he's a bit like what we wish Jasper Wiese sometimes had in his pocket, that ability to link and inspire. He's a really good captain. And I think Ireland has been playing above its talent level. I'll put it that way. So when that's true, you kind of look for, well, who is their leader? And, Mr. Doris stepped up.
Before we finish, I just want to ask you your opinion. I see Andile wrote a comment here, and he said, I think Rassie picked a strong team because he wants to end Gatlin's career. Remember the British Lions debacle and the subsequent jab from him thereafter. It's payback time. Your thoughts on that one?
If that's not true, then I wish it was true. I don't like Warren Gatland. Nope. I think he's a bit of a puss. I don't like the way he's sideways, sarcastic, shit-eating. And off camera, I can tell you for sure, he's not that nice a guy. I think he's a bit of a fake. I think Warren Gatland has an iron fist kind of coach, throwback coach. He's only good when he gets his players into the, Switzerland Alps, and he can have them for 6 weeks, feeds them some kind of magic brew, and they shred in some kind of ice machine, hyperbaric chamber machine. It's telling that all of his ex-players right now are throwing shade at him. Jamie Roberts, Mike Phillips, even Alwyn Jones. They're not getting the support. And I think that sometimes if you're just treat people well and with kindness and you're more real in front of the camera instead of, he's always making these sideways, even that Lion series, I felt like he positioned himself in such a way to inflame Rassie. Okay, Rassie shouldn't have taken the bait, but I feel like the first thing was him accusing the TMOs of cheating. And he has this kind of annoying way of saying horrible things, but because he's got a blazer on and he does the right things, he gets a pass. I don't like him. And I think he's one of those guys in rugby that is portrayed as a better man than he is.
All right, on Thursday's Lekker Rugby Pod, we're going to go into depth about what we expect from the game. We're going to have a lot of things to talk about. There's new league that's developing. There's stories about that. We are also hearing from Hendrik Ronier from Rapport. You've got a lot of information about that. So we are definitely going to be talking about that very soon. So don't go away. I look forward to it. Thanks, Harry. It was stressful, but we've done it. Thanks.
Cool, man. Cheers.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man. Cheers.
This is the Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry Jones and FPF.